I'm certain most of you remember last week when I made the video about the woman who decided to mutilate her landlord because she committed the cardinal sin of serving an eviction notice. What if we took that concept and made it even dumber, but in this instance, nobody gets mutilated. Instead, all we have is one person getting evicted and another person seeing it, and their response to seeing cops show up to get that person who's getting evicted out of the home is to use bees to attack them.
Now, law enforcement officers face all kinds of threats, but out in Longmeadow, they never saw this one coming. They say a woman weaponized bees to try to stop an eviction.
This one really takes the cake.
Investigators say the winged weapons came stacked in hives on a trailer, unleashed by this woman intent on stopping an eviction.
The bees came out unleashed and swarming, angry, and they started stinging everybody there.
Sheriff's deputies say hundreds of bees started swarming and stinging them, raising fears about possible allergic reactions.
One had a really high blood pressure, so was taken to the emergency room.
Deputies arrested 55-year-old Rory Susan Woods, who managed to zip up her beekeeper's suit in the chaos. Investigators say she didn't know the tenant, but is known to protest evictions.
That's not protesting. That is not demonstrating. That is breaking the law.
The sheriff says emotions often run high during evictions, but they've never planned for this kind of attack.
And when the bees pulled up, there's no turning to page 50 to say, hey, this is what you do when this happens.
But thanks to quick action, the woman was arrested quickly before anyone was seriously hurt.
Instead of looking at 4 counts of assault with a dangerous weapon with intent, she could have been looking at manslaughter.
Now, that woman, she was released on bail, and the very next day, investigators say that she was right back at that home protesting, but they say she was doing so peacefully.
I think the dumbest thing about this is that this person has had 2 years to get off this property and hasn't moved. And you could talk about rights, you could talk about the struggle of having to move from one place to another after getting served an eviction notice. I see this as something of somebody not being able to afford to live in an area, and they get served an eviction notice and they don't want to leave. They like the area. They feel as though they have a right to be here, so they're not going to leave the property. And after 2 years of trying to get the dude out, they say, all right, we're going to have to get him out via the cops. And the cops come, and this woman, who obviously just wants to be a hero because in her own view of the situation, she's been evicted, and so she feels as though she must stick up for everyone who faces eviction. But in this instance, you don't do anything productive. You just make everybody look at you and the person who's getting evicted as a bunch of entitled brats, because how do you use bees to attack people who are just doing their job? And your whole point is to say eviction is bad. We must stick up for people who are getting evicted. We must provide care. Why don't you let them live in your house for a while? Why don't you pay their bills so that they don't get evicted? Why aren't you doing anything productive, but instead using bees to attack other people who are just doing their job? You don't look like the smart individual here. You look like the weird dumbass who obviously has too many bees in her house. So at the end of the day, I hope they get this bastard out. I hope this woman loses her rights to her bees, and I sincerely hope people start to understand the more you think you got all the rights to live in all these areas you can't afford, the more they got rights to evict you when you don't pay the bills or you're just an overall nuisance to the neighborhood. Subscribe to the channel. I'll see y'all in the next one. Goodbye. I'm going to pay my rent.